Hello everybody, this is Slagwave, and today we're going to be doing another house tour in the Elder Scrolls Online. This time we're going to be doing a tour of all of the free inn rooms in the game. As of time of recording, there are 11 inn rooms, the most recent one being the Rosewine retreat in Skingrad. All of the inn rooms are fully decorated, and this is going to be an ASMR video, so I'm going to be going through the rooms a bit slowly, maybe reading any books that are in the rooms if we come across them. So if you're here just because you want to see the rooms, not because of ASMR, I will put timestamps in the description of each of the rooms so that you can jump around and skip ahead if that's what you would like to do. But yeah, we're going to be going through the inn rooms, and I think the inn rooms are some of they're kind of really fun when it comes to ESO housing. If you haven't gotten into housing in Elder Scrolls Online, they are such a good place to start. I think you shouldn't sleep on them because they're obviously small. They have a very limited item limit, and honestly, having those limitations can be really helpful. And I don't know, sometimes limitations can make it easier to come up with an idea. I don't know. I think they're the perfect size for, if you just come up with one theme or one concept. The inn room is a perfect place to sort of like execute that one theme, and it doesn't take too long to put things together, so it's not overwhelming either. I just think they're a lot of fun, and so I've fully decorated all of them, and I'm happy to show you what I've come up with. Right now we are outside of the Ebony Flask Inn in Ebonheart. I thought we would start here because this was my first inn room, free inn room as a Argonian, part of the Ebonheart Pact. By the way, in case you don't know, every character in the game can redeem one free inn room. It doesn't have to be in your faction, it can be any of the free inn rooms, and so if you have multiple characters, you can go and redeem each of the inn rooms with those characters, and you will have access to them on all of your characters. If you don't want to be bothered to make additional characters, then you can always just buy them for 3,000 gold, which could be a lot if you're a newer player, but towards, if you're at the end game, then 3,000 is basically nothing. And so yeah, I would not sleep on these inn rooms. I would go and get all of them and then see what you can do with them. But let us start with the Ebony Flask, and we will go through the base game inn rooms and I think work our way up chronologically. I think that's the plan. The Ebony Flask inn room. Okay, so I have turned the inn room into a sort of shrine for Mephala. Mephala, I'm not an expert on Elder Scrolls lore, but I know enough to know that she's associated with spiders. She's known as the web spinner. And so I tried to make the room reflect that. Obviously, we have a lot of spider web furnishings, and as well as I really liked having this Daedric, I guess it's not technically a spider, it's got 6 legs, but I think it's close enough. It gets the spider vibe across. And that's another thing that I think is really fun in housing, is having a use for the pets, the small pets that you accumulate. In the past, I always thought the pets were not super exciting, but once I realized you can kind of use them as furnishings, it made me much more interested in collecting them, because you can sometimes have the perfect pet for the perfect theme. So I just thought the spider was perfect for this. We do have some Daedric items sort of in the room, just to kind of get the menacing nature of the room across. One of my favorite things in this room, though, I think this was on accident, but I love how over the Mephala statue there's a red light above her, and then there are candles below her casting off the more white light and yellow light, and I think it has this cool effect where you can see the being lit red from above and yellow from below, and I just think it's a really cool effect. I'm not lighting is a huge deal in ESO housing, and I'm not very good at it, but in this room it just kind of accidentally worked out, and I really like the effect. This little guy, the slumped over skeleton, this is one of my favorite furnishings. I use him a lot in a lot of my houses, just because I feel like it's a good storytelling furnishing. It's just, I like his pose. You can lean him up against things, and I feel like just having him there tells kind of a story about what type of place you're in, about someone else who was here and didn't make it, and so I kind of like those, love this furnishing in particular. Over here, we have a book, Vivek and Mephala. This is the only book I had that mentions Mephala, and so it's not, I guess it's more related to Vardenfell history, but because it mentioned Mephala, I thought I would just include it in this room. I think it's pretty short, so let's just go ahead and read it. Morrowind is holy country, and its gods are flesh and blood. Collectively, these gods are called the Tribunal, the Triune Almisivi, 3 deities exemplifying Dunmeri virtues. Amalexia is mercy, Vivek is mastery, and Sothasil is mystery. Vivek is easily the most popular of them all. Vivek is also the most public, for he is the beloved warrior poet of the true people, paradoxically beautiful and bloody. Vivek is an artistic violence. Vivek is represented in the temple literature and liturgy as one of the divine kings of Morrowind. He guards the sacred Velothi subcontinent of Vardenfell and stands guard over Red Mountain. He is part of the Holy Tribunal, a god of the new temple, and an aspect of the blessed and righteous Almisivi. This explicit presentation of Vivek, the guardian god king and warrior poet, is one of the most accessible and familiar to Westerners. However, it is important to remember that Vivek is also known to the Dunmer as the transcendent evolution of the Daedra that anticipated him. Black Hands Mephala, a foundation figure of the earliest Chimer. This darker side of Vivek does not appear in the popular literature and liturgy, but is instinctively understood and accepted by the Dunmer as an integral part of Vivek's divine aspect. A more complete appreciation of the complex nature of Vivek requires an understanding of the nature of Vivek's anticipation, Mephala, and the darker themes are represented by the Daedra Lord's modes and motivations. Who is Mephala? Each of the 3 tribunes of the temple were represented in the dawn of Chimeric culture by their anticipations. These anticipations are known to the west as the Sinister Daedra Lord Azura, Boethia, and Mephala. In temple theology, however, Azura is the anticipation of Sithis, the Mage Lord of Almasivi. Boethia is the anticipation of Almalexia, Almasivi's mother and lady. Mephala is the anticipation of Vivek. According to legend, under the guidance of the 3 Daedra Lords, a discontented throng of Ulmer transformed themselves onto a new people and founded a new land. And while Boethia, the so-called Prince of Plots, provided the revolutionary methods needed to bring about this transformation, Mephala was the shadowy implementer of those methods. As known in the West, Mephala is the demon of murder, sex, and secrets. All of these themes contain subtle aspects and violent ones: assassination, genocide, courtship, orgy, tact, poetic truths. Mephala is understood paradoxically to contain and integrate these contradictory themes, and all the subtle undercurrents and contradictions are present in Dunmer concepts of Vivek, even if they are not explicitly described and explained in temple doctrine. The Dunmer do not envision Lord Vivek as a creature of murder, sex, and secrets. Rather, they conceive of Lord Vivek as a benevolent king, guardian warrior, poet, artist. But at the same time, unconsciously, they accept the notion of a darker, hidden current beneath Vivek's benevolent aspects. For example, one of the most striking persistent myths associated with Vivek is the story that Vivek conspired with his co-rulers Almalexia and Sithis in the murder of Lord Nerevar, the greatest of Dunmer heroes and generals. The story is derived from Ashlander oral tradition and is flatly contradicted by all temple traditions. Nonetheless, the tale is firmly established in the Dunmer imagination, as if to say, of course Vivek could never have conspired to murder Lord Nerevar, but it happened so long ago, so who can know the truth? The public face of Vivek is benign, sensitive, compassionate, and protective of his followers. At the same time, the Dunmer seem irrationally comfortable with the hidden aspects of Vivek, the darker components of violence, lust, and conspiracy associated with the more primitive, ruthless impulses of the anticipations. Okay, so yeah, that is the Ebony Flask in room. Next we will, let's go to the Daggerfall Covenant room, which is the Rosy Lion in Daggerfall. The Rosy Lion. Alright, so here is, let me put off my interface here. This is the Rosy Lion. The theme of this room is sort of like a tailor or a weaver's shop. This one, it kind of is what meets the eye. What inspired me for this room was kind of just the luxury furniture. One week, the luxury furniture was selling a bunch of items that were, associated with weaving, like the loom, like the spinning wheel. And so I kind of just used that to turn it into a theme for this inn room. And I think the luxury furniture can be really good for that, because every weekend most of the items he sells revolve around a certain theme, and so sometimes it's like, if you buy everything he's selling, you're already halfway there, and it can be a good way to come up with a theme for a room, and expose you to furnishings that you didn't even know were in the game. So yeah, this room, I just tried to gather any fabric furnishings that I could. I did create this nice storage area up here. I always think, I don't know, it can make the end rooms look a little more interesting to add some levels to it if there's space for that. But yeah, this room, there are no books here to read, but it's kind of just what meets the eye. It's just a nice little theme that I thought was cute. And yeah, that's the Rosy Lion. Next, we will go to Mara's Kiss, which is the Aldmeri Dominion in room. The Mara's Kiss is a really tricky one. It is definitely the smallest in room in the game. It was very hard to figure out what to do with it. But what happened was, and let me see if I can get a good view. I don't know if I can get a good view of the entire room in one glance, but last year during the anniversary Jubilee event, the event came with this cake as part of the event, but the vendor that you can use event tickets on sold slices of cake from the past year's Jubilee events, and I just thought it was cute, so I decided I wanted to collect all of the cake slices. Didn't really know what to do with them, and I just thought maybe Mara's Kiss could be the Jubilee cake celebration room. I don't know. It's such a small room that it's kind of hard to know what to do with it, but it's just the right size for something like this. I did try to collect cakes, so we have the cake from 2019, 2022, 2023, 2021, 2020, and 2016 through 18. I'm not sure what the explanation for that is. Over here, I think we have the 2024 cake slice, so a slice of this cake right here. But yeah, I think it was difficult to find furnishings because there aren't a lot of like party celebration furnishings in ESO. The closest thing I could find were these little streamers, which came from, I think, the Fargrave housing furniture vendor. They're kind of worn out, but that's kind of the closest thing that this game had to party decorations. So this month, coincidentally, if you're subscribed to ESO, there's usually a free furnishing that they will give you, I think per month or around there. And this month, coincidentally, was a statuette of Sanguine. So I just thought he would be perfect for this room, just kind of a party room, full of cake. I don't know. I thought he fit the theme a little bit, and he fits perfectly in the corner there. But yeah, this is my little cake Jubilee room. And next, we will go to the St. Delyn Penthouse in Vivek City. So to me, I think Morrowind is technically part of the base game now, but to me, when I played, Morrowind was a DLC, and so to me this is a DLC house, even though I think technically it's now considered a base game house. But this is the Morrowind in room. This one was a bit trickier to decorate because it's quite a bit larger than the base game rooms, but it has the same item limit, so it's just harder to make it feel fuller and more detailed, but I tried to do my best. The theme of this room is basically kind of on brand. It's a tribute to the Tribunal. We have, so this tree in the center here, the planter is actually the map of Vardenfell that you get from completing the tomb rubbings in Vardenfell, and as long as you don't look too hard at that volcano, I feel like it looks nice as a planter, I feel like. I tried to include a lot of local fauna, or flora, not fauna, with the mushrooms. There are banners to the Tribunal, as long as this triptych, which I think is really beautiful. I've bought it a few times from the achievement vendor in Vivek City. Over here we have a book, called The Living Gods. And so this book is all about the Tribunal, and I'll go ahead and read it now. No other religion in all of Nirn can claim what the Dark Elves know as absolute truth. Their gods rule over them and walk among them, as real and as present as any other resident of Morrowind. From their seat of power in Mournhold's Tribunal Temple, the living gods of the Tribunal guard and counsel their people. When necessary, they punish sin and error, but they also share their bounty with the greatest and least among us, each according to their needs. But who are the living gods? They are powerful dark elves who achieve divine status through superhuman discipline and virtue, the supernatural wisdom and insight. As the three god kings of Morrowind, they form the divine leadership of the Dunmer nation. The three, Lord, Mother, and Wizard, are described below. Vivek, the warrior poet god and master of Morrowind, is perhaps the most popular of the three. He also tends to be the most public, and the people love him. His visage appears both beautiful and bloody at the same time, and he has made violence into an art form. Vivek, the warrior poet, has darker aspects associated with primitive, ruthless impulses, and a lust such as lust and murder. Alexia, also known as Mother Morrowind, is the patron of healers and teachers. She is the healing mother and the source of compassion and sympathy, the protector of the poor and the weak. Alexia embodies the best of Dunmeri culture and purpose. She exemplifies mercy, and her wisdom guides the dark elves in all their daily affairs. Sothasil, god of the world mechanism, is the least known and most hidden of the Tribunal gods. Sometimes referred to as the Mystery of Morrowind, he is a magus and the patron of artificers and wizards. Perhaps the mightiest wizard in the land, and certainly the wisest, he is considered to be the light of knowledge and the inspiration behind craft and sorcery. Together, the living gods are the pillars of the Tribunal Temple. They represent the power and discipline of the Dunmeri people, and rule with a combination of compassion and strict adherence to law and protocol. And then over here we have a little, I don't know what you call that, a plaque of Almalexia, along with the homilies of Blessed Almalexia. Young Sothasil, while playing in the egg mine, saw a number of scribs in a deep shaft, and he began to cast stones upon them, snickering as they skittered and scattered, until one of the scribs, lifting its head up in agony, cried out to Sothasil, "Please, please have mercy, little boy, for what is sport to you is suffering and death to us." And so Sithis discovered that the idle amusements of one may be the solemn tortures of another. Lord Vivek and contentious beasts, Ashok and Kagudi, were strutting back and forth in a foyada, casting aspersions on one another's looks. "You're the ugliest creature alive," the Ashok told the Kagudi. "No, you are the ugliest creature alive," the Kagudi told the Ashok. For each thought himself the most handsome and the other most ugly. Then Lord Vivek chanced by and settled their dispute. "No, you both are the ugliest creatures alive, and I will not have my pleasant sojourn spoiled by your unseemly squabbling." So he dealt them both mighty blows, shattering their skulls and silencing their argument, and went merrily upon his way. And thus Lord Vivek proved that ugliness is as much in one's manner as in one's appearance. Okay, that story was actually pretty funny. The boiled Kagudi. It is said that if a Kagudi steps into a boiling pool, he will leap out immediately to avoid harm. But if the Kagudi is standing in a pool, and a wizard slowly raises the temperature, measure by measure, to boiling, the Kagudi will calmly stand in place until he is boiled. Thus we see that we must be alert not only to the obvious danger, but also the subtle degrees by which change may result in danger. The dubious healer. Once upon a time, a Telvanni issued forth from his tower and proclaimed to all the world that he was a mighty and learned healer, master of all alchemy and potions, and able to cure all diseases. Lord Vivek looked upon this wizard and listened to his boasting, then asked him, "How can you pretend to prescribe for others the cure to all diseases, when you are unable to cure yourself of your own manifest arrogance and foolishness?" The Gwar and the mud crabs. The Gwar were so tormented by the other creatures they did not know where to go. As soon as they saw the single beast approach them, off they dashed in terror. One night they saw a pack of Nyx hounds ranging about, and in a desperate panic all the Gwar scuttled off towards the sea, determined to drown themselves rather than live in such a continual state of fear. But just as they got near the shoreline, a colony of mud crabs, frightened in their turn by the approach of the Gwar, scuttled off and threw themselves into the water. "Truly," said one of the Gwar, "things are not so bad as they seem, for there is always someone worse off than you." The wounded Netch. A wounded Netch lay himself down in a quiet corner of his feeding ground. His healthy companions came in great numbers to inquire after his health, yet each one helped himself to a share of the fodder which had been placed there for his use, so that the poor Netch died, not from his wounds, but from the greed and carelessness of his erstwhile friends. And so it is clear that thoughtless companions may bring more harm than help. And yeah, that is the Vivek City in Realm. The next one is the Golden Gryphon Garret in the Somerset Isles, which is a really pretty in room. Alright, so here it is. I decided to turn this inn room into a sort of wedding chapel. I tried to make it look romantic. We have the red vines from Northern Elsewhere, some red flowers, these plants right here that I thought added some romantic lighting. And then we have the Zach Thunderboots here. He is ready to officiate anyone who is wanting to elope here at the Golden Garret Inn. And yeah, that's kind of it for this room. Over here we have a trash can though. Inside we have, oh, the Lusty Argonian Maid Volume 1 and 2. Oh. I guess someone had to say goodbye before they eloped. I will not be reading those books on this in this video. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought they'd be funny to put in this in room. But yeah, that's that is the Somerset in room. Next up is the Sugar Bowl Suite in Northern Elsewhere. Sugar Bowl Suite. Alright, so this room, let's try to get a good view. This one I themed after Sheogorath. In Northern Elsewhere, there is a side quest where you deal with Sheogorath, and he takes the form of one of these smaller Khajiit. This is obviously not him. This is as a bee, the banger. But he's kind of our stand-in for Sheogorath. He looks similar to this in the side quest. I think when I was making this in room, it was when the Skingred chapter had just come out, and so there were all these new cheese furnishings. And I just thought we would make a Sheogorath in room with all the glorious new cheeses that we have in the game. We have our cheese on the bed here. I can't remember, but I think Sheogorath's lore has something to do with a fork, and so I jammed a fork into the cheese. Let's see what books we have here. The Wabbajack. The Wabbajack is the weapon or artifact that is associated with Sheogorath, at least in Oblivion. That is his artifact weapon that is associated with him. I don't know if this book mentions Sheogorath. Let's see, little boys shouldn't summon up the forces of eternal darkness unless they have an adult supervising. I know. But on that sunny night of the 5th of the first seed, I didn't want an adult. I wanted Hermaeus Mora, the Daedra of knowledge, learning, gums, and varnishes. You see, I was told by a beautiful large-breasted man who lived under the library in my hometown that the 5th and 1st seed was Hermaeus Mora's night, and if I wanted the Hogma Infinium, the Book of Knowledge, I had to summon him. When you're the new King of Solitude, every bit of knowledge helps. Normally you need a Witch's Coven, or a Mage's Guild, or at least a matching pillowcase and sheets to invoke a Prince of Oblivion. The man under the library showed me how to do it myself. He told me to wait until the storm was at its height before shaving the cat. I've forgotten the rest of the ceremony. It doesn't matter. Someone appeared who I thought was Hermaeus Mora. The only thing that made me somewhat suspicious was Hermaeus Mora, from what I read, was a big, blobby, multi-eyed, clawed monstrosity, and this guy looked like a waistcoated banker. Also, he kept calling himself Sheogorath, not Hermaeus Mora. Still, I was so happy to have successfully summoned Hermaeus Mora. These inconsistencies did not bother me. He had me do some things that didn't make any sense to me, beyond the mortal scope, breadth, and ken, I suppose, and then his servant happily gave me something he called the Wabbajack. Wabbajack, 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 Wabbajack. Maybe the Wabbajack is the book of knowledge. Maybe I'm smarter because I know cats can be bats, cats can be rats, cats can be hats, cats can be gnats, can be that's, can be thises. And the doors can be bores, can be snores, can be floors, can be roars, can be spores, can be your, can be mine. I must be smart, for the interconnective system is very clear to me. Then why or wherefore do people keep calling me mad? Wabbajack, Wabbajack, Wabbajack. The other book I have here is The Cheeses of Tamriel. I don't even know if it mentions Sheogorath, but it's all about cheese. If you are like me, the very word cheese stirs you. Maybe you recall meals shared with family and friends, favorite dishes in the cold of winter, or of a simple snack in the shade of a tree while traveling. I'm here to tell you how much more there is to cheese than you ever realized. Join me on a journey across Tamriel and discover a breadth of culinary experience you've never imagined. Let's start simple. Eider cheese, popular in Skyrim, is eaten by the Nords alongside hearty, spit-roasted meats. They do not share the refined approach to cuisine that we Britons take, but I have discovered that Eider's rich, earthy flavor and creamy texture are quite conducive to sauces. Try it with poultry dishes or paired with a young Colaquiva. For a more exotic taste of Skyrim, you must seek out cheeses made from the milk of mammoths. Only the truly brave can obtain it from the giants who crafted it. Yes, giants. Who did you think could milk a mammoth? But its restorative potential and robust flavor make it well worth a bit of risk. I've heard it called an acquired taste, but you'll be amazed by how it completes a hearty stew. As a student of Breton culinary tradition, I cannot rightly count it among true cheeses, but Scuttlebear is mentioned for the adventurers. This delicious treat is crafted from, don't balk, the flesh of beetles native to Morrowind. Do not let its composition or greasy texture turn you away, for its peppery, complex richness is loved by the Dark Elves for good reason. For an energizing snack, you must try elsewhere fondue. There are countless variants of this dish, but the basics are always the same. A good cheese, strong stock, and of course, moon sugar. Keep your pot on a low flame and be careful not to overdo the ale. The best part is experimenting to find your favorite combinations of ingredients and dipping foods. My advice, try adding a different herb every time. On the subject of melting, the Red Guards craft a cheese with unusual quirk. They keep the secrets of its culturing process close to heart, but love to surprise foreign guests by serving it. It is known as shrieking cheese. When it is melted to a certain point, it actually lets loose a jarring scream. In a common dish, small blocks of the cheese are added atop spicy meats as it cooks in an open pot. When it shrieks, it's ready. Another rare treat you should ever be fortunate enough to find is the legendarily aromatic Olroy cheese. To give you just the slightest idea of how wonderful this cheese is, I do not exaggerate when I say a scent of it alone is worth the many false leads and months of traipsing around southern Cyrodiil in search of it. Look at all these cheeses and wheels, wedges, and slices. So many, and it's only the beginning. There are even more cheeses out there waiting for you. Even if you can't make long journeys in search of these delicious creations, I hope that reading about them encourages you to try as many cheeses as you can find. But yeah, this is my Sheogorath room. We have a beautiful goat with his libations and charcuterie. I just kind of wanted to make this room really silly, like Sheogorath, and I got a lot of the inspiration from actually doing the side quest in Northern Elsewhere. I kind of paid attention to how the game designers designed that level. How did they use the furnishings? And so yeah, I just thought putting a bunch of impossible barrels stacked on a wheelbarrow, a little table on a box, you know, a lot of that was inspired directly by the game itself. But yeah, that's my Sheogorath room. Let's see, next we have the Snowmelt suite in Solitude. Snowmelt suite. Alright, so this one, I don't know if I can get a good view. I guess this is as good as it gets. So the theme of this inn room, I guess, is Malacath. I don't know too much about Malacath. I know that he's associated with Orsimer and the Orcs, which I guess technically we're in Skyrim, but the snowy Orsimer is another very snowy region, so I thought, I don't know, I just thought it worked. I guess, I don't know quite what I was going for, if we're supposed to be inside of a cave. I tried to make it, you know, do a little optical illusion that makes it look like you're looking out into the outside, 2 knights there. Over here we have some orc and Malacath artifacts. I think the elephant's a little orc figurine. We have a statuette of an orc warrior. We have a Malacath plaque and a little statuette of Malacath. We also have some snow pets. I believe the snowball there is actually a pet. And sometimes using the pets as furnishings is also nice because they count as a different type of furnishing than the regular furnishings. So if you find 2 pets that fit the room you're going for, they are not going to take up the same item limit slot. So it's just a way to add something to the inn rooms. Over here is also it's a very large furnishing of Malacath. Maybe it looks kind of goofy there, I don't know, but I just thought, I don't know, this is my Malacath room. There is, I don't have a book here. There's one in the game that is about Volendrung, which I believe is the artifact associated with Malacath, but I don't have that book. I think it's a bit harder to unlock that literature set from the Mages Guild, so I don't have it. Otherwise it would be right here. But yeah, that is the Snowmelt suite. Next we have Pilgrim's Rest in Blackwood. Pilgrim's Rest. Alright, I don't know if I can get a good view. This one's kind of cramped too. I guess that's... So, Pilgrim's Rest, I decided to turn into a shrine to Sithis. I guess a lot of my inn rooms ended up being shrines to Daedric princes or Daedra or mother gods. I think that's primarily because there tend to be a lot of furnishings associated with some of the gods and princes, and so inn rooms can be a good way to kind of just make a collection of those furnishings. I think that's why these inn rooms ended up being the way that they are. I figured because Pilgrim's Rest is in Blackwood on the border of Blackmarsh, that we would make this a shrine to Sithis, because Sithis has a lot of importance in Argonian culture. A lot of Tamriel see Sithis as a malevolent god, but to the Argonians, he's more of a neutral force. Yeah, we have a bunch of figurines associated with Sithis. I love this tree, by the way. With the skulls, I think it's perfect. It's a perfect swampy tree. And then the book that we have here is just called Sithis. Sithis is the start of a house. Before him was nothing, but the foolish Altmer have names for and revere this nothing. That is because they are lazy slaves, indeed. From the sermons, stasis asks merely for itself, which is nothing. Sithis sundered the nothing and mutated the parts, fashioning from them a myriad of possibilities. These ideas ebbed and flowed and faded away, and this is how it should have been. One idea, however, became jealous and did not want to die, like the stasis he wanted to last. This was the demon Anui El, who made friends, and they called themselves the Aedra. They enslaved everything that Sithis had made and created realms of everlasting imperfection. Thus are the Aedra the false gods, that is, illusion. So Sithis begat Lorcan and sent him to destroy the universe. Lorcan, unstable mutant. Lorcan had found the Hadric weakness. While each rebel was, by their nature, immeasurable, they were, through jealousy and vanity, also separate from each other. They were also unwilling to go back to the nothing of before. So while they ruled their false dominions, Lorcan filled the void with a myriad of new ideas. These ideas were legion. Soon it seemed that Lorcan had a dominion of his own, with slaves and everlasting imperfections, and he seemed for all the world like an Aedra. Thus did he present himself as such in the demon Anui El, and the 8 givers as a friend. Go unto the Sharmat Dagoth as a friend. A Herma Mora Altadun Padhom Lacan AI. But yeah, that is Pilgrim's Rest. Next we have the Ancient Anchor Berth in High Isle. Ancient Anchor Berth in Gonfalon Bay. I don't know if I can get a good view of this one. So this is the Ancient Anchor Berth. This one I ended up pivoting to a different plan after I got started with it. Originally, I wanted it to just be a nautical themed room. Maybe it looked like the inside of a dock warehouse or something like that. But I ended up turning it into a shipwreck, and I tried to do a little optical illusion that made it look like we're in an underwater cave looking out up onto a statue at the Gonfalon Bay. Hopefully I'm saying that right. But yeah, I tried to add furnishings that added a bit of movement to make it look like we're underwater, including the little swamp jelly pet there. We also have some bubbles to add to the effect, which I think is helpful. In the boat here we have our slumped over skeleton again, and we have a map here of the High Isles. I think the maps are really awesome. I think all of the chapters have a map antiquity that you can unlock if you do a certain achievement. I forget which achievement it is, if it's just exploring the map, but I like unlocking those. I just think they're good storytelling pieces, or they just make the room be about where the end room is located. So we have our map right there. We have some coral growing out of the ship and some cargo overboard. Oh yeah, another moving plant there. But yeah, this is my shipwreck room. This was one of the last ones that I put together. For the longest time I didn't know what to do with this room. But we have our next one is the Journeys and Lodgings in the Telvanni Peninsula from the Necrom expansion. The Journeys and Lodgings in the Telvanni Peninsula. So this is another inn room that's pretty large. I don't know if I can get a good view. Perhaps this is a good view, but you can't see the second floor. This inn room is also extraordinarily tall. It has this beautiful ceiling, but I turned it into 2 floors because otherwise a lot of the regular furnishings are too short. I don't know. I just feel like it looks a bit better if we have like this more enclosed space up here. So here we have a lot of furnishings that come from the Necrom chapter. We have the Infinite Archive paintings. These came with as the free gift for being subscribed to ESO Plus for a few months. I believe all of these book furnishings came out of the Necrom chapter because of, Apocrypha. We have our map of the Telvanni Peninsula. I think there is a map for Apocrypha as well, but I don't have that one yet. I'm not sure why. I don't know what's stopping me, but that would be a neat one to have in here as well. We have this little caged creature. I forget what these are called. I know they're a part of the main story though, but it's been a while since I did that, so I don't remember what they're called. This is a little Necrom podium. I believe it came with, no it didn't, it was part of like a Seals of Endeavor reward, I think, 1 month. This is the Telvanni alchemy table, which you can get. It's an antiquity in the, I think in just Telvanni Peninsula, maybe Apocrypha. You have to go around and collect all of the pieces, so it's a little time consuming but pretty easy to, it's not difficult to do as long as you have the antiquity skill leveled up. And I just think it's a cool little table. The book here, I don't know why I put it on the ground, is the ranks and titles of House Telvanni. Telvanni is obviously, it's the Telvanni Peninsula, a lot of House Telvanni here. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and read it. A report created by the scholar Anduin Rear for the court of Proxy Queen Eleanor. Greetings to the majesty of the courts. I have been tasked by Penowin, mage and advisor to the Aldmeri Dominion, to help explain and summarize the society of our cousins, the Dunmer, also known as the Dark Elves. The Dark Elves are broken into houses, all of whom have their own internal social organization. This report will deal almost exclusively with the dark elves of House Telvanni, who are the most socially stratified. Here within the ranks of House Telvanni, slaves are not usually listed in the societal ranks as they are considered property. While most of the dark elf houses have abandoned this odious practice upon joining the Ebonheart Pact, House Telvanni considers slavery a tradition and ownership a sign of status. Hirelings are the lowest of the recognized ranks, consisting of free individuals in the direct employment of a house or slaves sponsored by a high-ranking elf. This rank includes mostly servants, scribes, and mercenaries. Hirelings may be added and dismissed at will, can be of any of the peoples of Tamriel, and are generally treated as disposable pawns by the conniving Telvanni. Families of hirelings are independent and not considered to be officially part of the house. Retainers are hirelings who have earned official acceptance in the households of their employer. They have more permanent assignments and lodgings and answer directly to Telvanni oathmen. Retainers may marry with the permission of their house and tend to marry within their class. Children of retainers are considered retainers as well. Oathmen is a term applied to all genders. Oathmen make up the bulk of any Telvanni household. Other houses also utilize the ranks of hirelings, retainers, and oathmen, but the Telvanni tend to stress the status more than others. Oathmen are allowed more freedom in their activities and are expected to take individual action in support of the house. Children of oathmen are considered oathmen. Lawmen, Spellwright, and Mouth are all specialized forms of oathmen. All three groups consider themselves superior to ordinary oathmen. Lawmen are guards, wardens, and other officials representatives of the complicated Telvanni justice system. Spellwrights are middling-powered mages, often apprentices assigned to their first great responsibilities. The Telvanni Mouth holds greater responsibilities as well as an elevated status. They serve more powerful mages, either wizards, masters, magisters, or the Archmagister, and act as their public voice, representing them in most areas. They are called Mouth because they speak with their master's voice and keep the wheels of bureaucracy turning. As such, each wields great power on their master's behalf. Wizard signifies the first rank of true power in the house. Any Telvanni mage that achieves this level of status can set their eyes on greater prizes, including Master and Magister. Masters consist of noble mages at great power. Masters can sit on one or more of the ruling house committees, including the Assembly of Masters, or the prestigious Telvanni Council. Membership to the council is by invitation of the council itself. The Archmagister leads the council, and the group is responsible for dealing with major threats to the household and choosing a hoarder in times of crisis. Hoarders are rare and usually singular in nature. They can be found in all the dark elf houses and are the highest non-magical rank within Telvanni society. Hoarders are appointed in times of emergency and granted wide-sweeping authority. Past hoarders have included powerful warriors, talented oathmen, and even ordinators. Hoarders serve as war leaders for only as long as the emergency lasts. The hoarder outranks the masters, but masters can revoke their power at any time. Magisters are the most powerful of the mages, earning the master's rank. Whether through consensus or by otherwise convincing the other masters, a magister title indicates that the wizard in question is powerful enough to be considered the equal of the Archmagister, or even their better when the time comes to make a challenge for the position. Archmagister is the official leader of House Telvanni, selected by the Telvanni Council. The current leader is Nelos Otheri, who wants nothing more than to be left alone to his studies. Most of the rest of the council shares his viewpoint. and as such his rule has not been challenged, as long as the dangers to House Telvanni are dealt with quickly, quietly, by someone else. Lothary's rule will remain secure. Progress between the ranks is possible through effort. A limited number of available positions results in great competition for promotion, and often lower-ranking Telvanni may conspire to remove their superiors through politics or poison in order to create opportunities for advancement. This last feature creates the opportunity for outside forces to use lower-ranked members of the House to cause disruptions and replace problematic leaders with someone more acceptable. Enterprising individuals could easily create situations where House Telvanni could be weakened. I suggest further study in this area as warranted. But, yeah. That's the little library area. Oops, fell down. Down here is just kind of a garden of Apocrypha plants. I think most of these plants come from Apocrypha. A lot of them are huge, so it was kind of difficult getting them to fit in this room. Over here we have a plaque for Hermaeus Mora, and this comes from the achievement vendor in the Telvanni Peninsula. I think you just have to do the main story to unlock it, but I think it's a beautiful furnishing. It's actually bigger than this. It's kind of hidden behind the wall there, but obviously he's a big part of, Apocrypha is his realm, so obviously he's a big part of the story here. But yeah, that is my journeys and lodgings. And then last but not least, we have the newest end room, the Rosewine Retreat in Skingrad. And this was the last one that I finished for furnishing. This is another one that is pretty large, but again, still has the same item limit as the smaller end rooms. Let's see, what's a good angle? I'm trying to make sure I get a good angle for the timestamps. So this one I decided to turn into an Ayleid museum. The Skingrad chapter had a lot of new Ayleid furnishings. Obviously the Ayleids, there's a lot of Ayleid ruins in the Westfield, so they're just a big part of the story and geography here. So I decided to turn it into an Ayleid museum. Like I said, there were new furnishings, but also the luxury furnisher for a few weeks had a lot of Ayleid furnishings as well, so it was kind of easy to gather enough things here. Over here we have a Varless stone on display, as well as a paint. I don't know if that is a Varless stone, but it's the same color, so I just thought they fit together. And here we have an Ayleid jewelry box and also the skull of an Ayleid king. The skull is an antiquity that for the longest time I didn't know what to do with it, and finally when I figured out what I was going to do with this in room, I was like, oh, perfect. That is exactly where he belongs. We just have some Ayleid artifacts on the wall here, and this is one of the buttons. An Ayleid button. Here's an Ayleid statue. The chandelier is another antiquity that I never knew what to do with, but finally it has a place. This little piece in the corner is actually a huge furnishing that is mainly buried inside the wall, only the small part is poking out. This is one of the new Ayleid furnishings that came with Westfield. I think it may be an antiquity, or it's either an antiquity or it just drops from doing world event stuff in Westfield. It wasn't too hard to get, if I recall. Over here we have a different stone. I forget what these are called. Kolanda stone. We have the raw form here, as well as the chiseled one up on display up there. Here we just have an Ayleid bookcase that I'm sure all of us are very familiar with if we've been playing Elder Scrolls Online. And over here we have a plaque that comes from one of the dungeons. It is, what's his name? I guess it doesn't want to tell me his name. He is an Ayleid king, I think. It starts with an N. Oops. King Gnarlmore. I don't remember which dungeon he is the boss of, but he is an Ayleid king, so he's on display here. We have a book on the bench here, The Last King of the Ayleids, and this will be our last book of the video, so I'm just going to read it now. The Ayleids, or Heartland High Elves, ruled Cyrodiil in the long ages of myth before the beginning of recorded history. One of the earliest recorded dates, in fact, is the fall of the White Gold Tower in 1 era 243, which is commonly assumed to mark the end of the Ayleids. Although Ayleid rule over Cyrodiil was broken in the First Era 243, this was only one of the most obvious stages near the end of a long decline. The first 2 centuries of the First Era saw increased strife between the great Ayleid lords of Cyrodiil. Alessia appears to have taken advantage of a period of civil war to launch her uprising. Imperial historians have traditionally attributed her history to intervention from Skyrim, but it appears she has had at least as much help from rebel Ayleid lords during the siege of White Gold Tower. The popular image of the Ayleids as brutal slave masters is based in fact, of course, but it is less well known that the number of Ayleid princes continued to rule parts of Cyrodiil after 243 as vassals of the new Empress of Cyrodiil. This suggests either that Ayleid rule was not universally detested, or that Alessia and her successors were more pragmatic than is traditionally believed, or perhaps some of both. In any event, excavations at a number of Ayleid sites now show continued occupation and even expansion during the so-called Late Ayleid period, First Era 243 to circa 498. At first, many Ayleid lords continued to rule as vassals of the new human regime. In some cases, Ayleid supporters of Alessia were even rewarded for new lands taken from slain enemies. It is not clear to what extent human slavery continued under the Cyrodiilic Empire. Humans continued to dwell in the Ayleid-ruled areas of Cyrodiil, but there is nothing definitive to show under what terms. This was an uneasy relationship from the beginning, and it was not destined to last long. Resentment at the continued presence of Ayleid nobles within the empire was a contributing factor to the rise of the so-called Alessian Order, founded by Maruk. The first victims of the Alessians were the Ayleids of Cyrodiil. In the early 300s, the surviving Ayleid communities in human-ruled areas were obliterated one by one. The refugees temporarily swelled the power of the remaining Ayleid lordships. Then, in 361, the Alessians gained control of the empire and enforced the Alessian doctrines throughout its domain. The Ayleid lordships were abolished. Enforcement of this decree did not appear to have required much direct violence. It seems by this point the balance of power was so overwhelmingly against them that their fate so long foreshadowed that most of the remaining Ayleids simply left Cyrodiil, eventually being absorbed into the elven populations of Valenwood and High Rock. Indeed, the rise of the Durrani hegemony may be linked to the exodus of Ayleids from Cyrodiil, a connection so far studied very little by historians. Still, a remnant Ayleid population seems to have survived the rule of the Alessians because we've heard of the last king of the Ayleids joining the Battle of Glenumbria Wars, where the Durranis decisively defeated the Alessians in 482. How this king's people survived the preceding century is unknown. We do not even know who they were, although recent research points to Nenlada as the possible resting place of this last king. Unfortunately, in the current state of the Empire, funds are no longer available for proper scientific investigation of such extensive ruins. So the answer to these questions will have to be left for future generations. And then over in this corner here, we just have a painting of some Ayleid ruins, as well as this music box, which I believe is a new antiquity from the Sheogorath chapter. I believe it's another one where you just have to go around collecting all of the pieces to put it together. But it's a pretty one. If you turn it off, it becomes a mirror, and then turning it on shatters the mirror. But yeah, that is all 11 end rooms in the Elder Scrolls Online. Let me know what you guys think, or what ideas you've come up with for your end rooms. But yeah, thank you everybody who for stopping by and checking out this video. It was fun to be able to finally share all the end rooms now that I finally have them complete. Again, these are such fun rooms to decorate, and I think it's a really awesome starting point because the limitation means that it's not overwhelming and possibly not terribly expensive to be able to decorate a full room. There are also 3 apartments that you can get, which are slightly bigger. Perhaps when I decorate those, I can show those ones as well. But yeah, thank you again for stopping by, and I will catch you next time. Bye!